People only start counting your value when they no longer have access to your presence. That's the harsh truth, my friends. It's funny how they don't see you when you're right in front of them. They don't value the comfort, the peace, the patience you bring until you're gone, until the quiet you leave behind becomes louder than any word you ever spoke, and that's when it hits them. That's when the regret crawls in, because here's what nobody wants to admit. They only realize you were the best after they've already lost you. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a warm fire in a cold world. Every time they came close, they felt comfort, they felt safe. But instead of tending to that fire, they stood too close, took more than they gave, and eventually they smothered it. And when the flames finally died down and the warmth disappeared, they panicked. They tried to light other fires, but none burned the same. None felt like you. That's the moment they realized they lost something rare. But by then, it was already too late. See, they thought your silence was temporary. They thought you were just upset. They thought you'd come back like always. But what they didn't understand is that this time, you weren't pulling away out of anger. You were detaching with purpose. And purpose changes everything. You weren't leaving to get attention. You were leaving because they didn't deserve yours. Let me break a lie that far too many people believe, that silence means weakness, that walking away quietly means you're bitter, heartbroken, or cold. But my friends, the truth is exactly the opposite. Silence is sacred. Silence is strength. Silence is what happens when someone finally stops explaining their worth to people who were never listening. When someone who once gave everything gives nothing because they've finally chosen themselves. They don't see it right away. Oh no, they laugh, they post, they move on fast. But late at night, when the distractions fade and they sit alone with their thoughts, that's when it starts to whisper. That's when the realization begins to rise like smoke from the fire they smothered. They remember your consistency, your peace, your calm voice when life was loud, your patience when they didn't deserve it, and suddenly your absence feels heavier than your presence ever did. You weren't loud, you weren't dramatic, you didn't chase, and that's exactly why they can't forget you. Because while everyone else played games, you were real. While others created noise, you offered stillness. And now they're surrounded by people who sound loud, but say nothing. And that's when they finally get it, that the best thing that ever happened to them already walked away. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who caused the harm. You didn't strike back. You didn't explain yourself. You just rose, quietly, strongly, with dignity, and now they're left replaying the past, trying to understand how they missed the value that was always in front of them. So if you've been questioning yourself lately, wondering if your silence mattered, if your absence is felt, let me tell you this. It does, and it is. Because people don't miss noise, they miss meaning. And you were meaning. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your power. From now on, protect your energy like royalty. Don't chase those who had front row seats to your soul and still looked away. Say it with me in the comments. Write it out like you mean it. I choose peace. Again, drop it below. I choose peace. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me, because what's coming next will remind you exactly who you are. Number 1, they didn't see you because you didn't beg to be seen. The quieter you became, the more they started to notice. Funny, isn't it? How people overlook the very thing that brings them peace, until that peace is gone. My friends, we live in a world that's obsessed with noise. The loudest person in the room often gets the attention, while the calmest presence gets taken for granted. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You didn't put on a show. That's why they missed it. That's why they didn't see you for what you truly were until the moment you stopped showing up. And that's when the shift began. That's when the silence started echoing louder than your presence ever did. Imagine a river, smooth and steady, flowing gently every day. It's just there, reliable, peaceful, but one day it dries up, and suddenly everyone starts noticing what they lost. The trees begin to wither, the animals scatter, the calm that was always taken for granted is gone, and now its absence feels louder than its presence ever did. That river was you. You were the quiet consistency, the emotional anchor, but they never truly appreciated it because you didn't sell it. You weren't loud about it. You just were. And now they're left wondering, why do I feel this emptiness? Why do none of these new people give me the peace I used to feel? Why do I keep thinking about someone I thought I let go of? Because you weren't just another chapter. You were the whole tone of the book. You shaped the energy in the room. But here's the thing. They thought your presence was guaranteed. They thought you were always going to be there. And because you weren't performing your worth like a sales pitch, they assumed it wasn't that valuable. Let's break a big fat lie right now. If they didn't see your worth, maybe you weren't giving enough. No, stop right there. That lie is toxic. The truth is, some people are so caught up in their own drama, their own noise, their own ego, that they can't even recognize gold unless it's wrapped in flashing lights. But that doesn't make the gold any less valuable. You see, you didn't go unnoticed because you lacked worth. You went unnoticed because you had too much calm in a world addicted to chaos. And that's what they're starting to feel now. It's subtle. It creeps in during quiet moments. A memory of your laugh, a flashback of how you listened without judgment, how you never needed to argue to make your point, how your silence could fill a room better than most people's words. And it hits them, not all at once, but slowly, like waves wearing down a stone, because real value doesn't need to raise its voice, it just is. But let's talk about you now. Let's talk about why this part of the journey feels heavy. Because it's not easy, is it? To walk away quietly and still wonder if they'll ever realize who you were to them. To stay strong in your silence when everything in you wants to yell, "You're going to miss me." That's the inner war. But here's what separates a reactive person from a stoic one. You chose not to beg to be seen. You chose not to water yourself down to fit into someone else's limited vision. As Epictetus said, if someone does not value you, walk away. Their recognition is not your validation. That's not just a quote. It's a survival strategy in a world full of shallow eyes and loud mouths. You walked away because you finally realized you don't owe people proof of your worth. You only owe yourself peace. And that's what you chose. Quiet power, calm detachment, unshakable self-respect. So to all of you listening, if you're sitting in the silence right now, wondering if your absence means anything, it does. They feel it. Maybe not today, maybe not even this week, but it's coming. That realization always does. Because the best ones are never forgotten, not when they showed up with presence, with consistency, with soul. And now it's your turn to rise, not to prove anything, not to make them regret it, but because you finally remembered who you are. Write this in the comments and remind the world who you are. I am enough, without noise. Again, I am enough, without noise. Let them hear you without hearing a word. Show yourself, show the world around you. And stay with me, because what comes next will explain why your calm was never a weakness. It was always the power they never knew how to hold. Number 2, they thought you'd always be there until you weren't. People don't value things they think they'll never lose. That one stings, doesn't it? But it's the truth. My friends, when someone gets used to your presence, your kindness, your consistency, they stop seeing it as a gift. They start seeing it as a guarantee. They treat you like a default setting, not because you weren't special, but because they got too comfortable thinking you'd never leave. And then one day you did. You didn't make a scene. You didn't throw a tantrum. You just stopped showing up. And that's when everything changed. Imagine walking into your favorite room every day and seeing the same familiar light, always glowing, always steady, always warm. You never question it. You never thank it. You just expect it to be there. But one night, you flip the switch and nothing happens. Darkness. That light you took for granted is gone, and only now do you realize how much you needed it. That light was you. And now that it's out, they're standing in the dark wondering what they did and why it hurts so much. They thought you'd always be there to text back, always be there to pick up their calls, always be there to forgive, to understand, to make it work. Because you always were. You showed up even when they didn't deserve it. You gave grace even when you got silence. You stayed loyal even when they stopped showing effort. And they thought that meant you'd never leave. But they were wrong, because even the strongest heart gets tired. Even the kindest soul reaches a breaking point. Here's what they didn't understand. You weren't staying because you couldn't leave. You were staying because you chose to. You were offering your presence, your love, your loyalty freely. And when you finally stopped, it wasn't because you stopped caring. It was because you started caring about yourself more. Let me break another lie while we're here. If someone walks away quietly, it must mean they didn't love you enough. No, that's not the truth. Real love doesn't always leave with fireworks. Sometimes it walks away in silence because it was tired of burning alone. You didn't leave to get attention. You didn't vanish to play a game. You left because your soul needed space to breathe. And maybe, just maybe, you finally realized that being needed isn't the same as being valued. And now they're feeling it. The routine texts aren't showing up anymore. The support system they once leaned on is gone. And the worst part? You didn't even say goodbye. You didn't need to. Your silence became your answer. Your distance became your decision. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away because staying was hurting you. They thought you'd wait forever. But forever has boundaries now. Forever has standards. Forever has self-respect. And while they were busy expecting you to always be available, you were busy waking up. Waking up to the reality that loyalty without appreciation becomes self-destruction. You chose to heal in silence, to rise without warning, to become someone who no longer waits for permission to walk away from what drains them. And that silence, it's starting to echo in their chest. It's in the way their phone feels too quiet. It's in the way your name still lingers in their search history. It's in the way they hear a song and remember a laugh they didn't realize they'd miss. My friends, you didn't lose them. They lost the version of you that was willing to tolerate being an afterthought. And no matter how hard they try to replace you, it won't be easy, because peace like yours can't be copied. It can't be mimicked. You either bring it or you don't. So, if you've walked away and you're wondering if it even matters, it does. They're starting to feel the shift, not because you forced it, but because they can't replace what they once called normal. You were never just normal. You were a presence. You were an anchor. And now that anchor is gone, they're drifting. So take a moment. Breathe in this new power. Say it out loud. Write it in the comments. I was always the light. Again, I was always the light. Let the world hear you without you having to speak. Stay with me, because the next part is the beginning of their regret and the rise of your peace. Number 3. You were the anchor, but they only noticed after they drifted. Sometimes they don't realize you are holding everything together until it all starts falling apart without you. That's the gut punch they never expected, folks, because when someone's used to having you as their anchor, always grounded, always reliable, they start mistaking your presence for a given. They think calm just exists on its own. They think peace just happens. They don't realize there's a person behind that calm, a soul choosing patience, a heart showing up every time they're falling apart. You were that anchor, but they only noticed once they started drifting, and you weren't there to pull them back anymore. Picture this: a boat tied to a dock, safe, steady. No matter the storm, it doesn't wander off because the anchor is there. But if that anchor is quietly removed, the boat doesn't notice it right away, not until the wind starts picking up, not until the current pulls harder, and then suddenly it's drifting into places it was never meant to be. That's exactly what happened to them. You were the one holding the emotional center, and when you quietly untied the rope, they didn't feel it at first, but now they're lost in waves. They don't know how to survive. They thought you were just there, always calm, always composed, always showing up no matter how turbulent things got. And because you didn't complain, because you didn't make a scene, they assumed your strength came easy. But strength like that, it's not born from comfort. It's built through scars, silence, and battles they never even noticed you were fighting. You were their emotional lighthouse, and they mistook your glow for decoration instead of direction. Let's tear down a lie they probably believed, that you needed them more than they needed you. That's the illusion comfort creates. Because you were always steady, they assumed you were dependent. Because you stayed through the chaos, they thought you couldn't leave. But staying was your choice, not your limitation. And leaving, that was your final act of clarity. Now that you're gone, they feel the weight, not the weight of your presence, but the weight of their own instability. Because when the anchor disappears, what's left is drift. And that drift isn't peaceful. It's aimless. It's uncomfortable. It's lonely in a way they can't quite describe. They're surrounded by people, and yet they feel disconnected. They're in conversations, but feel unheard. They're chasing distractions, but haunted by a calm they didn't appreciate until it vanished. And they may never admit it out loud. Their pride won't allow it. But internally, they're beginning to realize just how much of their emotional balance came from you, from the way you listened without interrupting, the way you stayed calm even when they were chaotic, the way your silence wasn't cold, it was stabilizing. You weren't perfect, but you were present, and that presence was powerful in ways they didn't understand until now. It's easy to replace noise. Anyone can text good morning. Anyone can call late at night. But that deep emotional safety, that unshakable grounding energy, that's rare, and they're starting to feel the difference. One moment they're fine. The next they hear your name, and everything inside them shifts. Because now the memory of your stability clashes with the unpredictability they're left with. You were the calm in their storm, and now the storm feels endless. Don't second-guess your silence. Don't regret your exit. Because you didn't leave out of anger. You left out of necessity. You stepped away because your peace could no longer coexist with their chaos. You didn't make them drift. You just stopped being the one who always pulled them back. That was never your job anyway. You can support someone, but you can't anchor someone who doesn't value the dock. So if you've ever been the emotional rock, the safe space, the grounding force, and you feel like it was overlooked, know this. It's being felt now, and not in the dramatic moments, in the quiet ones, in the stillness where your calm used to live. That's where the missing begins. That's where they start to understand. Say it with me. Write it in the comments. I was the anchor. Again, I was the anchor. Say it for yourself, for the peace you gave, for the steadiness they lost. And stay with me, because next, we're going to talk about what happens when they try to replace you and fail, over and over again. Number 4, they replaced you quickly, but couldn't replace what you represented. It's easy to replace a person, but the feeling they gave you, that's the part that haunts. That's what they didn't see coming, my friends. They thought healing meant moving on fast. They thought getting someone new would erase the echo of your presence. But here's the truth they're starting to choke on. People can be swapped, but energy can't. You weren't just a person, you were a presence. And presence isn't something you copy and paste into your life. Presence is felt. It lives in the room. It changes the air. It stays long after the door has closed. So yeah, they replaced you quickly. A new face, new chats, new laughs. On the surface, it looked like they'd moved on with ease. But what they didn't realize was they didn't move forward. They just moved in circles, trying to recreate something they didn't even understand when they had it. They thought it was about your face, your voice, your words. But what they actually lost was how they felt around you, the safety, the silence, the soul-level calm. And that's not something you replace with quick distractions or shallow compliments. They're out here chasing surface-level sparks while missing the warmth of your steady fire. And the worst part? They didn't even know you were a fire until the cold crept in. You were the type of energy that didn't need a spotlight. You lit up their life without asking for anything in return. But when someone's never had to earn peace, they confuse it for weakness. So they went looking for chaos dressed up as connection. And now they're surrounded by people who talk a lot, but say nothing. Let's break this lie wide open. If they moved on quickly, they never cared. Wrong. Sometimes people move fast because they do care, but they don't want to feel it. They're afraid of the stillness, afraid of what your absence is revealing to them, afraid that maybe, just maybe, they messed up something that doesn't come around twice. So instead of sitting with that discomfort, they bury it under distractions. But buried pain isn't healed pain. And every laugh they fake, every new conversation they force, only reminds them of what's missing. And that's you. Not your name, not your body, but the way you made them feel. Calm, seen, steady. They can scroll through all the apps they want, go on dates, post smiles, but in the quiet, when they're lying in bed, that's when your absence walks into the room, and it doesn't knock, it just sits there. Because no matter how fast they tried to replace you, what they lost wasn't just a relationship, it was a rare connection. And rare doesn't come back with the swipe of a screen. They thought love lived in bullet points, in checklists, in who says the right thing. But you didn't impress them. You impacted them. You didn't need to be loud or flashy. You just showed up, authentically, consistently. And now, every person they meet stands in your shadow. Not because you're perfect, but because you were real. And real doesn't vanish when it's gone. It lingers. It echoes. Here's the Stoic truth. You didn't lose anything. You were the gain. You were the experience. You were the lesson. And now, while they're out there trying to replace what they never understood, you're evolving. Quietly, powerfully. You're not competing. You're not checking who they're with. You're not lowering your energy to match theirs, because you don't need to be the loudest presence in the room. You are the one they feel in every moment of silence. So if you're wondering why it still hurts a little, even after walking away, remember this: the pain isn't proof that you lost. It's proof that you were real, and real ones feel deeply. But real ones also rise. Say this in the comments, write it down and own it. I was never replaced. I was revealed. Again, I was never replaced. I was revealed. Let them chase noise. You became peace. Stay with me, because next, we're going to talk about the moment your silence becomes louder than their entire world. And trust me, they won't be ready for it. Number 5. Your absence became the reminder. It wasn't the goodbye that broke them. It was the silence that followed. That's the part they didn't expect, my friends. They thought if you didn't slam the door on your way out, if you didn't write a novel explaining your exit, then maybe you didn't really mean it. Maybe you were just upset. Maybe you'd come back. But you didn't. You stayed gone, quietly, calmly, with no drama. And that's what started to haunt them. Because your absence wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. It didn't scream, but it echoed. And it still is. See, folks, there's a strange thing about humans. We don't always hear words clearly, but silence has a way of cutting through the noise like a blade. It gets into the cracks. It fills the space they never noticed before. When someone's used to your voice, your good mornings, your emotional check-ins, your random reminders that you care, and that suddenly goes still, it's not just quiet, it's heavy. It feels like something sacred has gone missing, and they can't explain it to anyone, because how do you explain missing a presence when you never even gave it the respect it deserved? Let's paint a picture. Imagine they're in a room that used to be full of warmth, not flashy, just steady, like sunlight through a window. They didn't think much of it when it was there, but now the blinds are shut. The warmth is gone, and everything feels colder, even if nothing has changed, except you. That's the weight of your absence. That's the cost of taking someone for granted. It's not a dramatic explosion. It's the slow, creeping realization that they lost something solid, something real, and now all they have are shadows. They didn't notice it at first. Nah, they thought they were fine. They had people to talk to, things to distract them. But distractions wear off. People get boring, and eventually they start scrolling through their phone out of habit, only to realize they're searching for your name. Not because they want to talk, but because they miss the feeling your presence gave them. The feeling of being grounded, seen, accepted, and now they're not even sure if they'll ever feel that again. Let me break the lie. If they're not chasing you, they don't care. That's what people will tell you. But listen, just because they're silent doesn't mean they're unaffected. In fact, sometimes silence is the loudest reaction a person can have, because when your presence was peace, your absence becomes the storm. And storms aren't always loud. Sometimes they build quietly, inside the heart, inside the soul, until everything they touch feels different. That's what they're living now, the aftermath of your absence. They didn't think much of your daily texts, or your steady support, or your consistent love, until all of it stopped, until they were left with a void. And the worst part, you didn't leave to punish them. You didn't block them, curse them, or try to get even. You just stopped explaining yourself. You chose stillness. And in that stillness, a message spoke louder than any words could. I won't beg to be valued. That's what they feel now. Not your anger, not your neediness, but your power. The kind of power that comes from emotional control, from self-respect, from knowing your worth isn't up for negotiation. And that's what's messing with them, because you didn't disappear to make them miss you. You disappeared because they already showed you they didn't appreciate you, and you just believed them. Now every day that passes without your voice becomes a mirror. Every silence becomes a question they weren't ready to ask. Why do I feel like something's missing? Why can't I stop thinking about someone I thought I let go? And maybe they won't say it. Maybe they'll keep up the act. But inside, your absence is the proof. It's the reminder, the alarm bell they can't turn off. So if you're sitting there wondering if your decision to walk away in peace meant anything, let me tell you, it meant everything. Not because it changed them, but because it revealed you. A person who doesn't need applause to know their worth. A soul who doesn't need closure when they've found clarity. A presence who doesn't scream to be heard, because your silence speaks for itself. Say this in the comments. Say it for yourself, and say it for the world around you. My absence is power. Again, my absence is power. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because next we'll talk about how they start seeing you everywhere, but can't reach you anywhere. Number 6, they started seeing you everywhere, but couldn't reach you anywhere. The memory of a calm soul lingers longer than the noise of 1,000 voices. That's the storm they're stuck in now, my friends. You're gone, but somehow you're everywhere. In songs they used to skip, in places that now feel unfamiliar without your energy, in conversations that were never supposed to be about you, but always circle back to you anyway. And what makes it worse for them? They can't reach you. They can see you, but they can't feel you. They can remember, but they can't return that distance. It's not physical, it's energetic, and it's driving them mad. They started seeing signs of you in the smallest things, a laugh that sounds like yours, a text that reminds them of how you used to check in, randomly, thoughtfully, a phrase someone says that hits them in the chest like, that's exactly what they would have said. And it doesn't stop, because when someone was real, when someone was present in the quietest, most meaningful ways, they don't just vanish, they become part of your internal world, part of your emotional wiring, and that's what's haunting them now. You're no longer beside them, but you're in them, and they can't shake it. They scroll past your name but hesitate to click. They type out a message, stare at it, then delete it. Why? Because even though they want to reach out, they know you're no longer in orbit. You've shifted your focus inward. You're not broadcasting your growth. You're living it. That's what rattles them. You're no longer available like you used to be. Your energy doesn't feel the same. And that change, that stillness, it's louder than any words you could have said. Let's break this illusion right now. Out of sight, out of mind. That's what they thought. That once you were gone, you'd fade into the background. But real ones don't fade. They echo. Because what they lost wasn't just a person, it was a connection, a mirror, a grounding force. You didn't just fill space, you brought presence. And now that presence is gone, they feel the hollow space where it used to be. It's not that you're missing from their life, it's that your absence is loud in their soul. You see, folks, when they could reach you any time, they didn't think twice. But now, Every time they think about you, they realize they've lost the privilege of access. That's the part they weren't prepared for, because you were always just there, like a heartbeat, like background music. And now that silence has replaced your presence. They're stuck hearing everything they ignored. Every kind gesture, every word you said that they brushed off, every sacrifice you made without needing applause, it all rushes back. But this time, there's no way to respond. And what's worse, the people they turn to, trying to replace you, don't measure up. They talk, but their words feel empty. They smile, but it doesn't feel safe. They show up, but it doesn't feel secure. Because they're realizing now, you were the safe space in a world that never stopped spinning. And they didn't lose someone who made noise. They lost someone who brought peace. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And that's exactly what you've become. A soul they can't find anymore. A place they used to run to, but can't return to. Because you didn't just walk away. You evolved. You stopped being available for the same cycles. You stopped being accessible to people who only noticed your presence when it benefited them. Now they're left with screenshots and memories, with songs that hurt a little too much, with pictures they forgot to delete. That suddenly mean everything. But they won't tell you. They won't reach out. Pride's too loud for that. But silence doesn't lie. And in their silence, your name echoes like a ghost they can't explain. So if you've been questioning whether your absence still matters, it does. You're not just missed. You're felt. In moments they thought would be forgettable, now branded with your memory. Because that's what real connection does. It doesn't knock when it leaves. It just takes a piece of the room with it. Say it loud in the comments. Show yourself to the world. They see me, but they can't reach me. Again, they see me, but they can't reach me. Tap that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because next, we're going to talk about how, no matter who they meet, no one compares to you. And they're finally starting to realize it. Number 7. Now they see you in others, and no one measures up. You never really know the value of a steady hand until you've held chaos. That's where they are now, my friends. Out there in the world, smiling in new photos, talking to new people, pretending the story moved on. But behind the filters and small talk, there's a shadow that follows them. It's not your voice, not your face, it's your presence. That rare, grounded, unshakable presence that made them feel calm in a world that never stops spinning. And now, no matter who they meet, that comparison is there. And it's not even close. They didn't expect this part. They thought replacing you would be easy. A few dates, a few laughs, someone nice who checks the right boxes. Good on paper, says the right things. But here's the truth, no one likes to admit. You don't fall in love with paper, you fall in love with energy. And your energy was different. It didn't demand attention, it commanded it. Quietly, powerfully, authentically. They're starting to realize that now. They talk to someone new, but it doesn't land the same. They laugh, but it feels forced. They get a compliment, but it doesn't go deeper than the surface. Because the truth is, they're not comparing personalities. They're comparing presence. They're looking for how you made them feel, and no one is making them feel it. Let's be real. You didn't need grand gestures. You didn't need to perform. You just showed up. Steady, calm, intentional. You remembered things others forgot. You listened with your heart, not just your ears. You made them feel safe to be chaotic, knowing your energy wouldn't crumble. And that's not common. That's rare. That's real. Let me smash this lie wide open. If they moved on with someone else, it means they've stopped thinking about you. No. Sometimes people move on because they can't stop thinking about you. So they try to bury it under someone new. They try to distract themselves with someone louder, someone flashier, someone more fun. But all it does is make your absence more obvious, because every conversation becomes a mirror. Every new moment becomes a reminder of the one person they can't forget. And here's the kicker. They'll never admit it. They'll play it cool. They'll act like they're fine. But the signs are there. The way they bring your name up accidentally. The way their mood shifts when a mutual friend mentions you. The way they scroll back through old messages late at night, just to feel what they used to have. They're chasing a ghost they didn't know was sacred until it was gone. That ghost is you. You didn't try to become unforgettable, you just were. Because you led with realness in a world full of performance. Because you loved without ego, stayed without needing praise, and left without needing to announce it. And now, every connection they try to build feels like a copy of a blueprint they no longer have access to. That's the silent power of authenticity. You don't have to compete. You don't have to fight to be remembered. When you live with truth and show up with presence, you leave a mark, one that no one else can erase. They can try to replace the position you held in their life, but they'll never replace the feeling you gave them. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. You didn't preach who you were, you proved it through consistency, through presence, through peace. And now that you've walked away, you've become the measuring stick they hold up to everyone else, without even realizing it. They don't miss your words, they miss who they were around you. And no one else is making them feel that safe, that seen, that grounded. So if you're wondering whether your absence has faded in their memory, no, it hasn't. It's become the standard they can't seem to match. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real in a world that keeps getting more artificial. Write this in the comments and remind yourself who you are. They'll never match my presence. Again, they'll never match my presence. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay close. Because next, we're diving into the moment they finally realize it's too late. And trust me, that's when the regret cuts the deepest. Number 8. By the time they realized, you had already evolved. Sometimes they don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves that only existed around your presence. That's the part they didn't see coming, my friends. They thought they had time, thought you'd stay in orbit, thought they could circle back when it was convenient, when they were ready. But time doesn't wait for the ungrateful, and neither did you, because by the time it finally hit them, by the time the silence became too loud, by the time the memories started haunting instead of helping, you had already evolved. See, they thought you were just being quiet, just pulling back for a little while, just giving them space. But what they didn't realize is, you weren't waiting, you weren't sitting still, you were transforming. That heartbreak, it became fuel. That silence, it became sanctuary. That pain, you turned it into power. You didn't just disappear, you rebuilt, in the shadows, in the quiet, in the stillness where real growth happens. They're sitting in reflection now, scrolling through old pictures, rereading texts, replaying moments they thought were small, but now feel enormous. Your smile, the way you listened, the peace in your tone, the depth in your presence. But this time, when they look back, something feels different. Not just because they miss you, but because they know they no longer have access to you. And that's what hurts the most. You didn't post a big comeback. You didn't announce your glow-up. You just moved differently, more grounded, more focused, more unavailable to nonsense. Because the person they used to know, the one who overgave, who over-explained, who tolerated breadcrumbs, is gone. And what replaced them? A version of you who no longer seeks closure, a version who became the closure. Let me break the lie that people love to believe. They'll come back when they realize your worth. No, they won't. Because when you finally become the version of yourself that knows your worth, you won't want them back. And not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of peace. You'll look at them and realize you outgrew the space they once tried to keep you small in. It's not just that they can't reach you now, it's that even if they could, they wouldn't know what to do with you, because you're no longer emotionally available in the same way. You don't respond to breadcrumbs, you don't chase validation, you don't lower your standards just to keep people comfortable. You've evolved. And now you are the one that's out of reach. They thought they had you figured out. But evolution doesn't send a calendar invite. It just happens, slowly, silently, relentlessly. And when it does, it turns you into someone who no longer looks back. Because what's behind you isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's the fire you walked through to become untouchable. And now they're stuck replaying the past while you're out building a future they no longer get to be part of. That's the real pain. It's not watching you become better. It's realizing they don't even know this version of you. The you who walks without needing permission. The you who stopped proving. The you who knows that peace isn't found in other people. It's protected from them. So if you're standing at this point right now, wondering if they'll ever truly understand what they lost, know this: they already do. But understanding doesn't equal access. And you, my friend, are no longer in the business of handing out passes to people who didn't value the ticket the first time. Write this in the comments and let it echo across the screen. I evolved. I don't go back. Again, I evolved. I don't go back. Say it for the old you, the one who gave too much, the one who waited, the one who stayed silent hoping they'd notice. And then say it for the new you, the one who grew in silence, the one who chose peace, the one who walked forward without flinching. If this message resonated with your soul, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And stay grounded, because when you evolve in silence, you don't need to announce it. You become the announcement.